Thank you.
Yeah, it's recording.
All right, perfect. Good morning. I'd like to call to order this morning the meeting of the Hartford Subcommittee of the MARB. It is February 24th and the time is 10:03. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Kimberly Kennison. I am the designee for Secretary McCaw, and with me today is Christine Shaw. She is the designee for Treasurer Wooden at this meeting. And I currently, the only opening remark I have is that something has come to our attention that we need to address this morning. So if at all possible, if we can end this meeting by 11:30, about a half an hour early, would be very helpful for Julian and myself. Is the only opening remarks I have. And Christine, any remarks?
No, other than good morning to all.
Good morning. Thank you. We do have a quorum. The first item on the agenda today is the minutes from January the 27th, and I'm looking for a motion.
So
Please.
moved.
Thank you, Christine. How about a second?
David Biller, second.
Thank you, David. Any discussion? I hear none. Can I get a roll call vote, Julian?
Mr. Brockman,
Aye.
Mr. Biller,
Yes.
Mr. Waxenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Kennison,
Yes.
and has Bob White joined the meeting? Or Steve Felsigno? Then that's everybody.
Okay, the motion carries and the minutes have been approved. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to review and discuss the fiscal year 2021 audit for the city of Hartford. I can see that we have the auditing partner, Leslie Zoll, with us from Clifton Larson and Allen, CLA. And you'll recall that at the last meeting, we had the city provide us gave us the report and gave us a briefing on that. And today we'll ask either the auditor or the city to walk us through the report and talk to us about the results of their audit. Leslie?
Good morning, everyone. I know some people are on the line. Is it okay if I share my screen, Kim?
Yes, please.
Can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you for being on.
Yes, to present the audit for the city of Hartford for June 30th, 2021. So I'm going to start out my agenda by just going through the terms of our engagement as auditors for the city, a very high level executive summary of the results of those audits, some financial highlights. The state single audit, the federal single audit has not yet been issued. We are still working on doing some of the testing. There is an extension. The federal government has extended the due date for the federal single audit. So it is currently not due. It is expected that by the end of next month that will be issued.
One question, Leslie, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What was the extension date that the federal government gave?
We actually don't need to issue till September now.
Okay. Thank you.
But it will be done way before then.
Sure. I just was wondering what how the rate changed. Yep.
We're going to go through a few of the government communications and then any upcoming GASBs that I would like to share with the MARB that's coming down the pike. So in terms of our audit engagement, we do express opinions on whether the basic financial statements are presented in accordance with GAAP. We do express an in relation to opinion on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and state financial assistance. And in that in relation to opinion, really it just means that we've looked at the schedule in relation to the financial statement numbers. And then we do express an opinion on compliance related to the major state and federal programs. In terms of internal controls, we do not opine on internal controls. However, we are responsible for reporting to you any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that we found in the course of our audit. We do provide that report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance, as well as controls over state and federal assistance grants. In terms of the overall results of the audit, the city of Hartford did receive an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's something that the city would want to receive each and every year, and they did so again this year. There was no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies over internal control to report to you today. In terms of the audit results of the state single audit, the city of Hartford did receive an unmodified opinion on those state major programs that we tested, and I'll go over those programs later in the presentation. There was no findings or significant deficiencies or material weaknesses to report to you today. At the request of the MARB last year, we were asked to add page numbers of the ACFR in our presentation, so I have done so this year. If you want to flip through later on and look at those pages where that information has been presented. So I'm going to go over just some highlights now of the front basic financial statements, the front exhibits of the ACFR. The governmental activities on page 12 and 14 actually, the statement of net position, and then the changes in net position. That column is on the full accrual basis of accounting, which means it includes all of your governmental funds, which on a full accrual basis of accounting means it also includes all of your long-term receivables and all of your long-term liabilities. So it includes long-term debt, capital assets. Anything long-term in nature that your fund financial statements would not include. Net position as of 6/30/2021 increased 75.3 million from 559.9 million to 635.3 million, and you can see that number on page 13 of the ACFR. Capital assets increased 23.1 million. That's part of the footnotes within the ACFR. Long-term debt decreased 133.4 million. And again, that's also in the footnote disclosures. The business type activity column of the financial statements includes all of your enterprise funds, whether they're major or non-major, and they are all combined in that one column. In total, business type activities decreased 11,000 to 18.9 million in 6/30/21. And then the Hartford Parking Authority, which is a component unit of the city, had revenues and expenditures of 5.4 million for the year. Now to highlight the fund financial statements. These are different from Exhibit 1 and 2 in that they're on a modified basis of accrual, so they do not include long-term receivables and long-term assets, I should say, and long-term liabilities. Fund balance increased $2 million from 29.8 million to 31.8 million. This can be found on page 16 of your ACFR. And then in terms of budgetary results, the City of Hartford's budgetary expenditures were 2.7 million less than budgeted budgetary revenues were 3.2 million more than budgeted. And those can be found in the RSIs in the back of the report. Tax collections remain consistent even through the pandemic, 96.18% versus 95.11% in the previous year. And then we have the other governmental major funds within the financial statements found in the ACFR on page 16. Capital Improvement Fund, that fund balance increased 15.1 million to 11.6 million. Community Development Loan and Grant decreased 265,000 to 2.1 million. Your Debt Service Fund decreased slightly to 244,000 to 11.3 million. Educational grants decreased 606,000 to $1 million. The new fund, American Rescue Plan, there was a transfer of 4.4 million into that fund. And then your non-major governmental funds is a combination of all of your smaller non-major funds. That fund balance increased 4.9 million to 56.0 million. And I just want to share with you that the fund balance in that opinion unit, the non-major governmental funds, was restated for GASB 84. And GASB 84 on fiduciary activities changed the way fiduciary funds were presented in the financial statements. Student activities is now in that non-major governmental fund column. So the restatement was 874,000 to account for the student activity fund. Now your enterprise funds are connected to your business type activities that we discussed earlier. This is broken down by fund. The City of Hartford's major enterprise fund is the Hartford Stadium Authority. Net position increased 292,000 to 877,000. The next two funds are your non-major enterprise funds. The Hartford Parking Facilities net position decreased 354,000 to 14.3 million. The Golf Course Fund increased 51,000 to 3.7 million at 6/30/21. Moving on to the internal service funds that are shown in summary in exhibits 5 and 6 in the front of the ACFR. There is detail in the back of the ACFR, so page 122 details the activity by fund. For workers' compensation, the net position decreased 1.4 million to a negative 22.7 million. Liability and property damage fund, net position increased 400,000 to a negative 4.1 million. Metro Hartford decreased 187,000 to 651,000. You had the retirees fund, net position increased 4,000 to 786,000, and then your actives net position stayed the same at 6.7 million. And then we have our final exhibits, I believe, the pension and OPEB trust funds. Again, they're summarized in exhibit 8 and 9, and then detailed farther on page 125 of your CAFR. Municipal Employees Retirement Fund, net position increased 189.1 million to 1.1 billion. Retirement Allowance Fund, there was 10,000 of employer contributions and benefits paid. Fireman's Relief Fund, 26,000 of employer contributions and benefits paid. And then in the Police Benevolent Fund, 166,000 of employer contributions and benefits paid. And then the City of Hartford's OPEB Trust Fund, that position increased 4.8 million to 27.7 million. And then I just wanted to share some of the footnote disclosures related to OPEB and pension. The net OPEB liabilities for the city, 400 million. It's now 0.69% funded. The Board of Ed net OPEB liability is 19 million. That's now 56.58% funded. And then you have essentially 4 pension plans. The MARB plan liability at 6/30 was 401.5 million. That's 74.93% funded. The RRF, PBF, and FRF plan liability is 1.5 million. The 415M plan liability is 134,000. And then you have the MERS plan, the Connecticut MERS plan, that's 36.3 million, and currently that's 71.18% funded. Does anyone have any questions on the financial statements that I could answer this morning? Okay, I'm going to move on to the state single audit. State awards expended for 6/30 was 158.9 million. The major programs that we did test that we did opine on compliance would be the magnet schools, priority school districts, state public library construction grant, state-owned property grant, and the citywide streetscapes improvements grants. As I noted earlier, there's an unmodified opinion on those major programs and no compliance internal control issues to report to you this morning. As I said earlier, GASB 84 on fiduciary activities was the standard adopted this year, and the student activities was reclassified from an agency fund to a non-major governmental fund. And then I just want to mention that there are significant estimates within the city's financial statements. Some of those include the capital assets. Obviously, the more you change the useful lives of those assets will change your accumulated depreciation and depreciation expense. And then net pension liability and net OPEB liability are based on actuarial data and assumptions that are used to create those liabilities. We did not have any disagreements with the City of Hartford's management. There was no difficulties encountered during the audit, no uncorrected misstatements or independence issues that we need to note to you today. We did, however, find in our audit some internal control improvements that we wanted to communicate to the city. And one of those is regarding the Educational Grants Fund within the Board of Education. They are currently using an Excel spreadsheet to create the deferrals and receivables in that fund. We did find some errors in that calculation that needed to be corrected by the Board of Ed. So we would like to recommend that they use the financial management system to create those balances on an ongoing basis, much like what the city does on their grant side, to allow them the ability to know what is available to them on a day-to-day basis, as well as what's been deferred, what is a receivable for each grant. And then I just want to end my presentation by just sharing with the MARB. I don't know if you're familiar with the GASBs that are coming down the pike. You may be. One of the biggest ones is GASB 87 on leases. That is going to be applicable for next year, 6/30/22 audit. It is a significant lift. Contracts need to be assessed. An inventory has been generated by the city. But a review of those contracts need to be reviewed and liabilities calculated for the balance sheet, because not only capital leases will be in play, but also operating leases on both sides, the city and Board of Ed. As we've seen so far in practice, there's a lot of things that might not be called leases that still apply to this particular GASB. So the city will need to look at all of their recurring contracts to make sure that they are in accordance with GASB 87 going forward. I'm not going to go through all of these GASBs this morning, but most of these are specific transactions and additional guidance to record those types of transactions. Anybody have any questions?
Excuse me, Leslie, I do.
Sure.
We're getting an echo. When you step away and look at the financials, I'm glad to hear that everything, there was a good conversations and no issues with working with the city. And I can see that they're continuing to make a lot of progress on these statements. But when you look at them, do you see that any areas of improvement or red flags or on a potential watch list that you would want to bring to our attention?
I do not, Kim, at this time.
Okay. And did you, when looking at policies and procedures, would you say that the city has sufficient policies and procedures when you went through your testing?
In accordance with our government auditing standards, we did not need to report any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses to you.
Okay. One other question, do you feel that the staffing level in the finance area is appropriate for this city, and they were able to respond to you with your requests in a timely manner?
I think that they were. I know they're having some turnover right now in the finance department, so I don't know if that will necessarily continue. We hope that it will, but last year we had no difficulties with getting information from the city.
Perfect. And when I talked about red flags, the other area I'm wondering about is if you found any areas of risk that you would want to bring to our attention.
Not at this time, Kim.
Okay. One other question that I'm wondering is the OPEB percent looks pretty low for the city side, not on the Board of Ed side. It was page 77 and it stated that they had 0.69% that had been contributed against the outstanding liability of the 400 million, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So as far as standard and what you're seeing out there, to me, that seems like it's quite low and that it might be an area that they need to continue to improve on.
It certainly is an area of that would warrant further consideration if funds and resources are available in which to do that.
Okay. That's it for me. Do you have any questions, board members?
Kim, if the board members are still thinking about questions, I have a couple about
Please.
the enterprise funds. I think they're probably more for the city, but the
Do you have a page?
let's see, on the PDF, it's page 119, so it's in the combining statements for the non-major enterprise funds. The golf course had for a number of years had been running deficits, and it looks like had an operating surplus this year. And I'm wondering if that's has that fund or that operation now stabilized, and is the city anticipating that it's sort of on stable footing now?
Hi, Julian, Jen.
Hi.
It appears that it is definitely getting more stable. I'm not sure if that will be a COVID blip and, when people are all back fully to work and things like that, if we'll see that fall off again. So we're still conservatively budgeting $100,000 as an expenditure from the general fund to transfer to golf if that's needed. But as of January, we don't think that we'll need that this year either.
Okay.
So
because
things are definitely looking up.
Very good, because the results show that there was it looks like
Yeah.
there was no transfer in, so that's a good sign. And then with the, on that same page, the Hartford parking facilities is a pretty large, pretty significant operating income, and then the large transfer out what is the transfer out for? Is that for debt service or?
I have Leanne jump in here if I misspeak, but I believe that is transferred to the general fund for the revenue that they do out of there. I don't believe there's that service, but Leanne, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, good morning, everyone. Yes, Julie.
Hi, Leanne.
Transfer to, good morning, Kim. That's the transfer to the general fund. So this is the umbrella fund that takes in all revenues and expenditures. So the net activity from the parking fund. And then it also handles all of the assets and the debt for parking. And then the net activity is transferred out to the general fund every year.
Okay, I just note that the overall change in that position was a decrease, and so the whatever the formula or calculation is for arriving at what goes to the general fund, it still allows for the possibility that there could be a decrease in the overall net position.
Yeah, I would have to look into it deeper to see exactly what that decrease is from, but I will do that for you and get back to you.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Any other questions, Julian?
That's all I had. Thank you.
How about the board members? Christine?
Ms. Kennison, yes, forgive me if I missed it, but was the deck that Leslie referred to, was that
No.
distributed? Okay.
No. Yeah.
All right.
But Leslie, we would like you to send that to Julian or myself, please, so that we can get that off to the members.
They
I
did
understand
send that over.
I had sent that to Jen and Jen had sent it to Julian, so.
Yeah,
Oh,
I can get
sorry.
that out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Um,
And just a follow-up question for Ms.
Sure.
Zoll. Thank you for your presentation. And I think the takeaways are good. I noted as I was following through on your presentation, I'm just curious to know if this is a standard reporting protocol, but there would be reference to increases or decreases. For example, there was a slide which indicated that maybe it was pension liabilities or outstanding debt. And the first figure would be the amount of the change. And then the second figure would be the final amount. I could probably articulate it better with an example, but at first blush, it would look like there was a massive change when actually you were referring to the change in the final number. Anyway, it just appeared to be like a range rather than the actual change. I'm not sure if that's an unclear comment, but I was just curious, is that how changes are typically reported?
We can certainly, in future presentations, allow you to see the beginning balance and the ending balance if that would help clarify the change. So
Yeah, I just, I'm mindful that whatever this board reviews, I tend to think that members of the public who are not necessarily accountants should be able to follow. And I don't think it would have been that clear unless you were, narrating it. It was clear when you were walking us through, but if that standalone document were to be reviewed, it might be a little confusing for members of the public to track. That's all.
I will note that, Christine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? I have one more final comment, I guess I would probably say, maybe two. And that is on page 19, under the internal service funds. It's stating that there is an $18 million negative net position at the end of the year. And that has grown by $1 million from last year to this year.
That's correct.
So for the city, I guess is what we're, or unless you happen to know, Leslie, what is attributing to this? I understand that there probably is there one particular item that is causing that deficit, like workman's comp or?
Workman's
I can
comp is definitely the fund that had the most amount. Leanne, you can just talk.
Yeah, we had an increase, Kim, in the IBNR and the workers' comp fund. And we don't fund the IBNR since it's an accounting estimate, and we fund actual claims as they're presented to the city. So as long as the deficit and the IBNR are relatively close to each other, then we don't really take any funding approach to it. And the IBNR for all combined is 21.3 million in fiscal 21 compared to 19.9 in fiscal 20.
Okay. And you said the majority of that is the workman's comp?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess the next question is page 12 on the financials is exhibit 1. Leslie, I think that's the one you referred to as being fully loaded.
It's the full basis of accounting.
Sure.
The governmental activities column, Kim, includes all of the funds except for pensions and
Okay.
OPEB.
So this is the excuse me. This is the form that they would use if in industry standard versus just looking at a municipality that banks and those type of companies would look at would be this fully loaded form, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when looking at this fully loaded form, the unrestricted net position has $711 million deficit.
Yes, because most of the city's net position is captured in
Capital.
capital assets.
Understand. So in an industry standard, when I see something like that, what it alerts me is my next question would be is does the city have any or to the city, does the city have any issues with cash? Because when you see that your net position is really the final part of it is all about your capital assets, which is bricks and mortar, then I wonder do you ever have a situation where you have a liquidity issue or cash flow issues? Jen or Leanne, and I'm not sure if Leslie, you saw any of that.
So Kim, I would say that a majority of that unrestricted net position being in the deficit really relates to the OPEB and the pension liabilities. So on a day-to-day basis, we do not have a cash flow issue.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
On the internal service fund, back to what we talked about before, under insurance benefits and claims, you got that the 77 million. That also deals with the IBNR of the self-insured insurance. In other words, it's paying for the tail. Is that correct?
We actually fund the IBNR for health insurance and prescription medications. We do not fund the IBNR for workers' comp or auto and general liability. So that IBNR represents, that IBNR represents just workers' comp and ALGL.
So where does if you've got, obviously you have a tail from fiscal year to fiscal year, where you have claims from a previous month that roll over to the following budget year. Is that come out of the internal service fund? I'm on the board side now as well.
Yep, so the city and the board are combined. We use a
Yep.
combined internal service fund for health insurance for both active and retirees. And both
Yep.
the city side and the board side fund that IBNR differential every year. So you won't see the liability because it's funded.
Okay, and well, we can ask the board what that number is. I mean, obviously you fund some, they fund some. So the total that the board funds out of its budget is X and yours is Y,
Correct.
which gives you the total. I got
Correct.
it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Leslie, for your presentation and the city, and great news on no audit findings. And
Thank you.
full cooperation. Thanks.
Have a good day.
Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is the special education data and information. We started that presentation at the last subcommittee meeting. The superintendent had provided us a presentation and the data for the special ed programming and the costs at that last meeting, and we had a lot of discussion, started to have discussion about it. We did run out of time, unfortunately, and it kind of got cut short. Julian, I don't know if we did receive any questions as follow-up for today, but I would like to get back to that again, and we may just want to get a little refreshed. I don't know if the superintendent is with us.
If I may interrupt, I had actually communicated to Julian recommending
Okay.
that we defer the discussion until March.
Oh, okay.
As it's our school break week and the key personnel you'd probably want to have in that conversation are off this week.
Sorry about that. He probably is aware of that and it didn't get to me, but we're like, passing in the wind. Even.
Yeah, and your finance guy here is probably not the best choice for answering special ed questions.
Well, you did it. I'm sure you helped out in the tables and the presentation. So I have to say that the presentation has definitely is getting better. So it's been helpful. So don't cut yourself short. All right.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we will defer this conversation till the next meeting. And then we move on to the budget mitigation measures is the next item on the agenda. Jen, I know we have some materials included in here, but if you could give us an update, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Good morning, all. As a reminder, our mitigation efforts here are more as we look out in 24, 25, 26. So our budget was balanced or is balanced in 22 and is forecasted to be balanced in 23. Where to put the numbers on this spreadsheet to get a total is a little bit hard to determine sometimes. So as I look at the total that we're looking to mitigate versus where we're at right now, I think it's not as clear as I'd like it to be. So I wanted to point out a couple things so that we really are making good strides on here. So for instance, in our tax collection efforts, we're working on our tax deed sale. They put forth several properties. 16 of them have been redeemed through February 16th. So we received $693,000 in proceeds, or not proceeds, in back taxes on those properties. So while that's not in the column to talk about savings, increases in revenue, we did manage to get $693,000 out of that. And then 34 properties remain on the tax deed sale with the target of a March or April 2022 sale, but those continue to come in. So we are working towards that. On our private duty jobs and other receivable efforts, we have 100 and I had that number just a moment ago, $130,000+ in collections right now. We've collected about $7,000 on that, but it's, you know, we're moving forward. It's a new process, so we're getting there. And then we will be sending approximately 70,000 more to collections this month. And we'll put about 40,000 on tax invoices that are current, so we can get those collected related to blight claims and things when people have trash in their yard and cleanup and things like that. So again, moving along with our collection efforts, there's lots, you know, ways to go, but we're definitely moving forward on that. Grant opportunities, just as an update to the MARB, our Director of Grants, Evan Johnson, his last day was Tuesday. So we do have Cheryl Horowitz, who has offered to step up to be our interim director. So she's going to continue to move things forward. She's fantastic. We're really excited to have her along. So she'll continue to aggressively apply for grants. The new update for this month is we received a Smart Policing federal grant, which focuses on response to non-fatal shootings for $500,000. That won't all be spent in 22. That's $500,000 to spend over the next couple of years on that program, which will likely offset some, you know, some general fund expenses that we likely would have had. We would have had to do that regardless. So definitely a program that we're excited to have funding for as we move forward on that. Our energy efficiency opportunities, I don't believe I mentioned this before, but Shubhita actually left us to go work for the state. So she was our director of sustainability. So we do have an assistant to the director for facilities and energy who is fantastic, and he's working really hard on moving these projects forward that Shubhita was working on. So while there's no update in the amount here, it is not to say that things are not moving forward, and there's a lot of work still being done on energy savings projects and things of that nature. We spoke about golf earlier. That continues to be strong, so I still don't believe we'll need that $100,000, but we're going to keep it set aside there for a while. Our workers' compensation cost reduction strategies. So again, while the number is not significant as shown in the calculation here, with this PMA 24 that we put in place with DPW, we are in the process of getting PMA 24, which to remind the group, or for those who aren't aware of what PMA 24 is, if we get injured on the job, instead of just automatically assuming we just need to go to urgent care or go to the ER, we pick up the phone and we call this 24-hour triage nurse line. And they tell us, right? Like, oh, you bumped your head. Okay, you need to go to the ER. Oh, you scratched your finger, put a Band-Aid on it and call us back in a day. But it also allows us to gather that information very quickly instead of somebody injuring themselves and then a month later saying, oh, by the way, I injured myself, and then the costs escalate from there. So it truly seems to be a great program. At this point in time, we have a dashboard now where we can print out reports and, show trends and things like that. And as of right now, we're tracking to spend about $1 million less than we did in 2021 on workers' comp claims. So just a trend, but it really is looking like this PMA 24 is definitely saving us money. It's hard to put a number on expenses not incurred, but I definitely see savings there. Fire should be going live with this very soon, and then police will be there shortly after. So we hope to continue to see these savings.
If I may interrupt, how long has that option been in place, that PMA line?
Yeah, it started with DPW in August. So it's been around for about 6 months, but we're definitely seeing a significant savings there. And our DPW director loves it. He raves about it. He really is glad that it isn't there. He's a champion for sure.
It reminds me of an offering when my son was born. It was called a warm line, something less than a hotline. And it was a nice way to, I know it's a great term, right? But it was a very effective way to provide, immediate information and arm people with, and kind of give them some assurance that, they had some information. And so the potential cost savings are very real. Good luck.
Thank you. Our cost reduction strategies through procurement efforts. We continue to work to find ways to save just by way of how we do procurement. Our latest achievement or item that we're working on is making all of our POs electronic, so no more paper sending out purchase orders for folks. So we think that'll save about $5,000 a year. We're also working on Adobe contract routing, which while won't save hard dollars, it's going to greatly improve our process on getting contracts routed timely through the city. So very excited about that going live next month. And procurement is also working with MHIS to standardize technology recycling to generate surplus sales or rebates. So lots of opportunities there, continuing to move forward. And then our cost reduction strategies through facility and fleet management efforts. We have our fleet working group. We're still working closely together as departments come together to talk about different efforts. We're going to transfer some cars that are maybe underutilized to other departments in order to not have to purchase some new vehicles, especially with supply chain issues. But we wouldn't have actually been able to come to that conclusion if we hadn't met as a cross-departmental function as a committee. So while I can't put hard dollars on here for those, I'm definitely a committee that will save money for the city going forward. So those are our strategies. And then I also include in here our revenue collections reporting. So we have many miscellaneous receivables. These are the three groups that we're really focusing on in our departments. We have police, private duty, fire marshal, and then kind of a catch-all rents, pilot payments from entities and things like that. But the exciting thing to me as I looked at this month is that our police private duty over 120 days is the lowest it's ever been. Well, in this, at least in this report. So I just wanted to point that out and say, we're working really hard. If folks don't pay, they go on a no-call list. We're sending things to collections. So I definitely think that our processes are improving, and we're seeing the benefits of the hard work of our revenue team. So with that, I'll open it for questions.
I have none at this moment. Members? I hear none. All right, thank you. Jen? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe Bob is coming to unmute. I don't know. No. Bob, did you have a question? No? Okay.
Ms. Kennison, if I may, I do have one point of one thing I'd like to flag for the MARB, if now's the time, or if
sure.
If I should do it. So we are currently working on three bargaining unit contract negotiations, and in light of the world in which we live and all of the raises and things that other folks are getting, we might be exceeding the 1.5% that we currently have baked into our forecast for some of the units. So while we'll work hard to ensure that we're budgeting appropriately and forecasting and using savings that we have, we just wanted to flag that as a point of item that we're working on within the city.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can update us as you get closer. Do you anticipate that some of this would be on our radar for one of the upcoming months, that we'll have to, you might get to the level of tentative agreements and plan that out?
Yes, and I'll work directly with Julian to get those on the calendar as soon as we know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we're on to other related items of the agenda. I do not have anything else to add. Julian, do we? Do you have anything?
No, just a preview. So that the mayor releases a proposed budget in April. In the meantime, the Board of Ed has gone through its budget process, and so we'll be looking at that in March.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, I think I will distribute the documents that Phil sent over for the Board of Ed budget. And then if there are some questions that can be, if members come up with questions in advance, then we can give them a heads up as to, some of the questions and follow-up information that members are looking for.
Yeah, then they're prepared for responses rather than just we can already be ahead of the game. That's great. Okay, Phil?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like Matt has his hand raised.
Oh, Matt.
Julian, can you just remind us what the current status is of the healthcare analysis?
So we.
Very good. Very
um,
good. We meant to talk about that. So, and it slipped my notes. So I apologize. Thanks, Matt.
We were approved to seek out engagement on a kind of a streamlined process, and are in the process of getting a quote literally as we speak.
Cool. Exciting real-time efforts.
It is real time, right from this morning.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions or related business that we need to bring? I hear none. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mark.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right. I know that there won't be any
Aye, I was a
opposed.
little. Aye.
That very good. I thought you were going to come up and say opposed. I'm
No,
kidding,
no.
David. Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for joining, and have a good weekend since it's near to us, and we appreciate your service with us.
Take care.
Bye now.